Welcome to the Living Your Greatness podcast. I am your host, Ben Mummy. The purpose of the podcast is to inspire millions of people across the world to achieve greatness and enhance their overall personal well-being. Living Your Greatness is becoming the go-to resource that CEOs, elite athletes, professional coaches, and entrepreneurs rely on to upgrade themselves. The podcast helps you master the best of what other people have already figured out. So I gladly invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy tuning in to today's episode. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Living Your Greatness. This is your host, Ben Mummy, and today we have a new guest to the show, and her name is Kathy Tremblay. So for those of you that don't know Kathy, she's a two-time former Olympian in triathlon. She persevered and excelled in her sport for more than 17 years. An entrepreneur at heart, she has always surrounded herself with a high-performance team while searching for financial partners to reach at the highest levels of her sport. With the experience she acquired from these partners, including Cascades, Saputo, Oakley, Kathy has broadened her knowledge of the world of work and close links between elite sports and corporate performance. So Kathy, welcome to the show. I am super fired up to chat with you today.
Oh, that's amazing. I have butterfly in my stomach. I feel like I'm in a start line, and that's amazing. I never really look back, but when you throw it like this, that's awesome.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, your bio obviously says that you're an interesting person, but more important, something that I've been impressed about already before, us hopping into this podcast, your leadership and your authenticity as a person, leading without a title. So let's actually get kicking here. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where did you spend your formative years growing up? And what inspired you to become a two-time Olympian in triathlon?
Well, being an Olympian, that came way far in the story. I was born in Quebec City. My dad was a military. So, and my mom was also in the military one before me. And because they were traveling a lot, my mom went out the military and she kind of worked in a different war in Quebec City until my dad they told him he had to go somewhere else. So he was shipped in Ottawa. So he started working in Ottawa, and this is where the story begins, because we stayed in the Quebec side. So I grew up in Gatineau. Well, I was born in Quebec City, and then I grew up in Gatineau, did all my young school down there, and I started sport études when I was around 12, where I started doing triathlon. But before doing triathlon, I kind of, before you choose your sport, I think I had awesome parents. My mom was not really into sports. Like my mom, she's an awesome mom, but she's not a sport mom, My dad, oh my God, the apple doesn't fall far the tree. My dad, he's hyperactive. He's super into sports. But it's so funny because I told you he was in the military, but he was a musician in the military. But it's funny because at home, he never brought music at home. He always brought sport. So that's the thing. So my dad, hyperactive, and I guess me, me too. So in a young age, he really put me into many different sports to just, burn that extra energy. So I start million things, trying to do karate. I actually totally fail at that. I was not enough serious. And after that, I started doing, figure skating. Oh God, with the dress and stuff and the cold arena. No, that was not my sport. Totally not. Then I tried dance. Totally doesn't have the moves. So dance didn't work for me when I was young. And then they put me into swimming. So that I like. It was kind of an individual sport, but needed to have people around. So it was, when you're at a young age, friends are just so important, because what you have in life is your parents and your friends. And I loved my group. We just had so much fun doing swimming. But after one point, around, 11, I was already swimming 6 times a week. So I got bored of just doing one thing 6 times a week. So I told my dad that I wanted to stop swimming. And my dad, with the less hair that he had on his head, I think he just take off the last hair he had on his head and just oh my God, what am I going to do? She needs to do a sport. So this is how he introduced me to triathlon. But at the time, triathlon was not like a sport that everybody really know. So I was like, what is triathlon, you know? So he's like, Kathy, you could still swimming, you know, you love swimming, but there's also bike and run. And I was like, not really sure about it. But at the time, I was probably 80 pounds, all wet. You know, I was so skinny. I was putting 2 pair of jeans, one over the other, to look a little bit bigger. So when my dad said, you can start triathlon, but you can have muscles. So I was just like, I think that was the trick. So he said I was going to have muscle if I was going to try to do triathlon. So this is how I jump in, you know? So my dad promised me muscle, which I never really had. But I fall in love with that sport at 12. And since then, you know, at that point, I just went one level to the other, but the most of it is every morning I had to go swim. I always enjoyed it. My mom, she just opened the light and she didn't have to shake me, kiss me a million times and just come back again. Nope, open the light and I was gone for training and I just enjoyed it.
I love that. I really enjoyed, and I'm sure my listeners did as well, your humble beginning, and more importantly, also hearing about some of the influences, right, from both your mom and your dad in terms of very enthusiastic and keen and interested to, you know, bring that sports side to your life. And then also your mom also getting that maybe, let's say, humble side or more recreational kind of level side. Both of those two things that probably shaped who you are, not only in your professional career, but even now today where you continue to give back. So thank you for sharing that. You know, it was pretty cool. You know, you ended up making it to, you know, an Olympic level, world-class level. But what was it like? Because not everyone gets the opportunity, you know, to compete for their country. What was it like to be part of Team Canada at the Olympic Games?
That's a good question. You're just very proud doing it. It's a slow process. You know, I don't know if it's an expression in English, but when you kill a frog, you just put it slowly in the hot water and it kind of dies slowly. But it's kind of the same. If you put it positively the other way around, you just build yourself through that level that you don't make it a big deal when you're on top. But the thing is, sometimes you take it for granted that you're fit, you're fast, you're just there, and it's something easy when you're on top because you kind of build it up, you know, and it's just, oh, you're just there. And it was just, you know, because you're racing always the same people and you just kind of, I deserve to be there. And I worked myself through it. So I didn't install it to anyone. So it was kind of, I deserve to be there. I worked through it. And, you know, I had a good team around. And also, I realized in those years that Canada, it's a huge country. We could have like million different countries into that country. You know, like all my European friends, they kind of drive 2 hours and they're out of their country. I fly 7 hours, you know, to go to the complete west of my country. So there was a time at the same time where all the national team were training West Canada, like, you know, in Vancouver. I was the East Side girl that speak French. And my country, my place was here in Quebec because I couldn't talk very well in English. And my team was here. And at one point, they wanted me to just move to West and train with the national team. I'm just like, guys, I can't. I need my family. It's so funny, but I needed my dad and especially my mom. My dad's stressing me out. Like at some point I told my dad, I don't want to see him in the race because he make me nervous. But my mom, she was more calm. She helped me like get organized and she gave me confidence. And also my team, my coaches, my people that just made it a whole, you know? So at one point, my national team told me, well, like if you don't come to West, we cannot help you. You know, like with all the massage and all that, I'm just like, all right, I'm just going to do it myself. So I really did, because I said to them, I didn't want to move to West, but they're still going to keep me on national team because result was there. They could not do anything because, you know, result talks. And I hate people who just say, I'm going to be that. I want to do this. I do it. Like I did that. And, you know, so anyway, so here, what I was proud is I built also another side of the national team here in Quebec. So I had my chiropractor who actually went to the Olympics with us, but that was our team, dressed up all in red. We're just very proud. And, my coaches and all my people, we build that here. And again, today, they're still my people. And I think it's more than just going to the national team at the Olympics. You build something forever. Like I said to my chiropractor, actually 3 weeks ago, I see her still every 6 weeks. I think what I'm most proud is I built that team they were with me no matter what. Good time, bad time, and together we try to make ourselves better, into that process. And going to the Olympics, maybe it's my side. I'm a very emotional person. Maybe I should have worked more with psychologists at that point, because the Olympic was just big. It's just big. But when you bring it back to one little piece, it's the same people you see every day at every races. And if you go to another level, it's even less competitive than the qualification, because the qualification, you have 6 Australians, 6 American, all the best big country, they have the max best athlete in the world. In the Olympics, you have a max of 3. So you cannot have 6 Australian, the max is 3. You cannot have 6 Americans, you can only have 3. So, and you have to invite other country at the same time at the Olympics. So when you think about it, the most difficult to get to the Olympics, it's all that qualification that leans to it. And then after when you're at the Olympics, it's just make it happen now. It's a different race because it's bigger. So if you get into your emotion, you can just be completely overwhelmed, which I got at some point. I remember in Beijing, oh God, I remember looking at the grandstand and I was just like, my dad is in there, and I could hear the music. And even now, like, I have goosebumps talking about it because I'm so emotional, but I had tears. Like, I'm just like, oh my God, shake it up. Yeah, the Olympic Games, no tear, just be a warrior. But I got those emotions. But it was the most beautiful thing you can achieve as an elite athlete in a amateur sport.
I've really enjoyed hearing about, your experience and talking about that whole process of, working so hard to get there. It sounds like you were the same athlete or the same person. And in fact, even the qualification journey is harder. I think with all the emotions, it can be overwhelming. And that's where a lot of people always say too, especially a lot of Olympians, they always say when it gets to the games, it comes down to mindset. They have been training hard, they are ready, but now it's all on the mental side, right? So I can't wait, to dive in and ask a couple of questions about that. But before I go there, you also mentioned team. You had a good support system at home and, your friends or your chiropractor and stuff like that. I also know too that there was a list of some notable Canadian triathletes who participated with you at the 2008 and 2012 Olympic Games. Simon Whitfield and Paula Finley, as well as Kyle Jones. Are there any meaningful stories that you are proud to share about these triathletes who went to the games with you?
Well, Simon was always a goofy guy who was always like, he's never serious. When you're around Simon, it's always funny. There's always a story. Or Simon, he's always down to earth, and he always been down to earth. I didn't know like intimately all those athletes because they train west and I train east, so they were not my training partners. But when we saw each other at races, we're also focused. But I remember at the Olympics in Beijing, like, he was always making fun when we were going into that pool, like cold pool, teasing everybody or just hiding her stuff or just, I don't know. He was making the atmosphere more calm. And obviously, I think he was in a good spirit because he won that Olympic Games. I always admire also his focusedness. Like he really did believe in himself. I don't know if he doubts, but he didn't let anybody else around just doubt. But he was just, it's my race. Let's do it. But Kyle Jones, that's another one. He was a funny guy. Like I remember he went in a training camp and he got tickets on his car because he was not parked at the right place, and he put it on Simon's Whitfield parking like a windshield so he can pay the ticket instead of him. And Paula, she was more calm, but she was so stressed all the time. I remember that being around Paula was just really like she was so stressed all the time. And I think she still is. I think it's part of her personality, but she was a nice girl, but very timid. It's funny because she had the talent to achieve so many things, but I remember just, oh my God, I don't know if it's her self-esteem, or she was just unsure of so many things that made her like, it was kind of stressful sometimes. So anyway, but everybody was just, we had a great team. I mean, even if we had like a big country like Canada, it's difficult to bring everybody at one place, and just, how can I say that? Not to belong, but we were friends, but not really training together. So, being with Simon, Kyle, or Paula, it's like being with my friends in Europe, or with the Mexican people. Like, I didn't know them the same way that I knew the other people racing with me. And to tell you the truth, like my people that I was more training with was more the Frenchies, from France, or even the Mexican. They were just fun because actually maybe it's the party side of it after the after the races that we enjoy each other. But I don't know what else can I say. I should dig in my memory, but
I think that's perfect. It was super cool to hear about those different characters, right? And like the behind the scenes of kind of each of the athletes, because you had mentioned even before yourself, right? How emotional the games is, and all these athletes that you either compete against or you compete with or you cheer on, right? So there's so many aspects that go into the games, right? So I appreciate you for sharing those stories.
And Simon, you were just talking about, I just want to say, Simon was a boy, like he was just so fast. I wasn't even training with him. He was just too fast, So my boyfriend, my husband now, he was training with him for a while, and he really did enjoy it because he was looking for domestic for Beijing and to help him, on the bike. And my husband was with him and a bunch of guys training with him. But they were just the bunch of guys together. They were just so fast. We could not, it's not the same thing. So
I'm glad that you added those other details about Simon. He sounds like pretty amazing because I think he did go to 5 Olympic Games, right? And that's pretty hard, in terms of, being sustainable and keeping a healthy relationship and keeping even, your physical health well. So yeah, that's definitely really impressive. That definitely speaks a lot of words. I want to shift back to you in terms of, you had a pretty cool achievement too. You were at the World Games in 2012 in Japan. That was a pretty amazing race. And when I was preparing for this interview, I watched it and I saw like the feeling in your eyes, crossing like that line. It must have felt pretty amazing. So are you able to, go back to that memory and kind of share, a highlight from that race?
Absolutely. Beijing 2012 was the win in Ishigaki. Ishigaki, there's something special with that island because it's a little island in Japan. And that island has something, I think I was a Japanese in another life and maybe from Ishigaki, but every time I went there, I felt, oh my God, I felt so confident, so prepared, so relaxed, maybe at the same time, And I remember I did the work, and all my coaches said, Kathy, because you cannot expect something different than all the work that you did before. So if in training it went well, you did the times, so you can only focus on bring your shoulder down, bring your knee highs and the little details that make you go fast, because the fast, you have it, you proved it in training. So in Ishigaki, I just remember jumping into that water, and I just had such a good start, and I led the swim. And after that, we went on the bike, and we're just like a small group, taking turns. I just remember it was not like a fast bike. No one really wanted to just go too fast on the bike because everybody was saving their legs kind of for the run. So I kind of knew it was, being win on the run. And then after, when I start running, I just felt so light, and I had like little spring in my legs, and I just fly through it. And I was just, that's amazing. I won that race, and it felt just incredibly normal and smooth. But I was just in a good mindset, I guess, and training went well. And that was just a good way into the qualification for the Olympics.
I love that. I'm happy that we took the time, to celebrate that moment and go back in the past. And I actually want to go on the opposite side. I know when then you were at the London Games, there are times too as an athlete, it's not always sunshine, not always pretty, not everything goes our way. And I know at that games, when you went for your second triathlon, unfortunately, there was a bike crash and that obviously impacted you not finishing the race. And that happens with life. Even though this was maybe really disappointing at the time and hard to accept, how did you learn, to accept this experience, let go and move on from this performance?
I never looked back. Okay. But I had a good team, and I remember my team, we knew that was the last race. We knew that was the last big race. I was not going for another cycle for the Olympics, but I really did ask myself that I did everything on that race to just make it different. If I look back, could I do something different? And no, I went back into my bike. I knew my bike was completely a disaster. My wheel was like all smashed. Like it was just doing this ding, 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 ding on my bike. Like there's nothing else I could have done. But the thing is, what we knew, and that's a scoop. And I really never talked about it to the journalist, because I didn't know at the time. When the journalist asked me, how did it go? I was just like, I just crashed. But okay, how can I say that? Because there's a story behind that. Before, like, if I go back, okay, I don't think I was in my best shape, like swimming, that's all right. But just before the race, the mechanic looked at my bike and he said, you have a little puncture on your wheel, we'll change your wheel. I was like, okay, my job is to race, focus on your swimming, your bike, like just do your little thing. He's responsible for the mechanic. If he says he's gonna change my wheel, then it's fine. So he changed my back wheel with the cassette and all that. So he's like, go and try. I go try my bike, and I'm just like, it doesn't work. I cannot get my top first gear and my last gear. What's going on? My brake are touching my wheel. Like I was pedaling and I could hear my brake touching my wheel. I was just like, what the hell is that? So they kind of open a little bit my brakes, try to fix it. And they're like, go again, go try. So I go try my bike again. And yes, they did some little fix on my bike, but I was like, I can still not have my top gear and my back gear. And they're like, it's a flat course, you don't need them. So I'm just like, okay. So I start my race having a wheel, my back wheel like this. And did my race, did my swim, didn't go as well. But when I went on my bike, every loop that I was doing, there was a place where one tree dropped some oil on the floor. It was just very, very slippery on that specific place on the course. And every lap I was crossing that place, my back wheel was shifting. So one loop I was inside, back wheel shift. All right, next loop, I'll just go in the middle, so I won't get that sleepy spot, I go second loop in the middle. My back wheel still slip a little bit. I didn't felt really comfortable on my bike. Third lap, I go on the outside. So I'm just like, maybe there's, maybe it's the spot in the pack that make it so I go on the outside, and I think it may be the third lap, whatever the word, crash. So I did crash. It was not because somebody else slipped, because obviously, it was slippery. But it's just after the race when we realized the wheel they gave me was Paula Finley's wheel. She had the SRAM bike, SRAM, and I had Shimano component. And they put SRAM component on my Shimano bike, at the fucking Olympic Games. So, but I didn't know that until the end when I went back home and I was packing my bike, going back to Canada. I was like, what the hell do I have Paula Finley's back wheel when I had my own wheel, in backup for, things like that. And his job was to make sure we had only two girls, me and Paula. So they should have Paula stuff, like the SRAM, backup, and the Shimano backup, which I gave them, but they forgot it. They forgot to bring my gears to the Olympic Games before the race. So to tell you the truth, this is pissing me off still now, but there's nothing I could do. And national team at the time, you asked me if I was, before, how proud you are. I'm proud representing my country and the kids that are in it, that have like stars in their eyes, but sometimes the national team is really hard on the athletes. They don't do their job perfectly to just make sure you're okay. We saw a lot of problems with coaches, like a psychological problem, like not being equal with athletes. I guess at some point I was maybe left out and they just didn't care. And they did that huge mistake at the Olympics. I don't know if I could sue them. I don't know what, but I just decided, because you asked me the question, how did I manage this? So when I knew this, I was just like, this is not a battle I want to take. I want to finish my career loving that sport. I did it by myself. I create my own team that support me from day one to day Z. And actually, that's my story. I did everything that I could. I did the best. I trained okay. And the story comes into that process. And the process takes 10 years, 8 years, and so many stories come out of it. It's not one race that will determine all that positive that I gained from being an Olympian, a triathlete, and I just decided that okay, I crashed in London, but at the end, if you put that in perspective, I won a World Cup. I was the only one who qualified for the Olympics, even boys and girls. I finished 8th. I had a great season. I enjoyed every places that I went on the planet with the people that I love. This is the last year of my career. This is what I want to remember, because the other thing I cannot control. So I cannot focus on something that I had no control on. So I have to let it go. So yeah, that's the first time I say that story, pretty much, because I always thought that it was never worth saying, because who cares? Like at the end, like people just look at a result. You don't really want the story. And I want people to remember the Kathy that enjoyed triathlon, did everything that she could, which I did. And this is my story.
I love that. And that's actually one reason why I wanted to bring you onto this podcast is in terms of everything that you're doing outside your athletic career as a person to the community, to inspire kids, adults, everyone, to be healthy and active. And we spoke a little bit about in your bio, that entrepreneurship mindset, as well as that community driven, I think, personality of you. So no, I appreciate you for being honest and, having the courage, to talk about that. But most importantly, do the most important thing, which is talk about your whole identity of your whole career and how every training, every race, or most importantly, loving the sport is what matters most. So I really appreciate that. And that actually transitions well, because my next question is, you've been recognized for a lot of entrepreneurship awards in Quebec. I believe that you've been recognized for some of these accomplishments because of your involvement with Bouge Bouge. So what is Bouge Bouge and why is this organization so close to your heart?
Well, Bouge Bouge, it's a nonprofit organization that actually it's my second business that I created after the Olympic Games. Because if I still go backward, when you finish the Olympic Games, yes, I went to university. I did a bachelor in business creation because, like you said, a little bit, the leadership, even my sport career, I went to get my own sponsor. I was a little athlete entrepreneur at the same time. I'm always wanted to do it my way. And it's always my word, a highway, because I hate people saying no to me. Not in them, no, it's good when you respect yourself, but no in terms of, no, you cannot achieve something. Oh God, if I believe I can do it, don't say no to me. I'm just gonna roll on you with my truck. Like if I want something, I go get it and I put the effort in. So after the Olympic Games, I started my first business, which I still have. It's Equipe Altius. And the goal was to create some program in businesses to promote health and based on motivation. And a lot of my clients, they always wanted to have sports event, and they wanted to have like some building activities. And so it kind of turned out that Equipe Altius became more Bouge Bouge, because people wanted to get together into events. And at the same time, I was like, all right, let's do something special then with Bouge Bouge and give it a mission and a vision that makes sense for everybody to put their heart into it. So that's why I went for a nonprofit organization that gives back to community, that have a mission. We say in French, la lutte contre le décrochage physique. So it's like when you're not physically engaged, how you can get physically engaged into a sport, then it comes to motivation. And what is motivation, if you ask question? Well, motivation, it's autonomy, competence, and social connection. So my goal was like, how can I make someone love doing a sport? Because sport, it's not about being an Olympian. Sports, it's about your body. We're human. We have a heart. It's a muscle. Pump the muscle. You need to do something to just stay healthy, right? And doesn't need to just involve triathlon. You can do yoga. You just need to stay active, but you need to be motivated in doing it. So we need to give you choices by autonomy, competence. So not something too hard that you cannot achieve. If you ask me today, do you want to do a marathon? I'll say no. My body cannot do it. Like my knees hurts. I cannot put the mileage. It's too big of a goal. But if you say a 10K, I'll say I'm in. So competence, it's about where's your level of competence. It's like somebody who wants to do kickboxing. Are you going to do like Georges Saint-Pierre kind of stuff? Are you going to just be at your level, staying local? Like it's all about, and social connection. It's to make sure that your environment is helping you achieve your goal and is empathic. So Bouge Bouge is this. So Bouge Bouge, it's actually, I want to get to the Olympics with that Bouge Bouge and just bring it to another level, but I had to start from scratch, and I want so many communities to have their own events, to get kids prepared to that events in different kind of sports, and just to celebrate at the end with, some Bouge Bouge project. Are just right now before an interview, I was actually in a conference with a school regarding our adventure program in schools. And right now we have Adventure Quebec, get to know the indigenous people, so the 11 nation around Quebec. So the school get together, it's virtually, but they need to do a 6,000K together in different kind of ways. So anyway, we have cool programs to, motivate people to just be active. So the events, the project adventure, and we put running clubs in different communities or schools to just help it, So that's my everything every day. And I don't feel like, I do work a lot, but I just enjoy it. Like some morning I'm just like, oh, let's go, a little bit like when I was training, like that's where I am right now.
No, I love that. You got some really good energy and, the passion is clear, by what you just shared, that your heart is in the right place. And I appreciate, you explaining for my listeners, to get a better feel of Bouge Bouge. And I think I shared with you earlier on, before we did this podcast, I'm pretty involved in the running community, right? So I'm pretty excited for a bunch of my friends in the running community, to kind of hear about this and support you in any way that we can, to give back and contribute. But more importantly, something that I want to also talk here, I think it was pretty big because you spoke about inspiring people, to move, but also to understand their relationship with physical activity, right? Understanding that it takes competence, understanding that it takes autonomy, right? And all the other things that you spoke about. But sometimes, some people can have that, but maybe they get an injury or maybe they have a setback, right? So there's so many things that can affect them, even if they did have a healthy relationship. So my question for you is, I know you have suffered some physical injuries and burnout before and have always found ways to get back on your feet and regain the balance that is crucial for reaching peak performance. What are some mindset strategies and tools to help athletes or people to avoid injuries, overcome setbacks, and deal with burnout?
That's an amazing question, because obviously there's motivation, but the other side is like, we call them the barriers. For example, you're motivated to do triathlon or to do running, but you have the barriers. It's too far. My group is run too far from my home. I cannot get there. I have injuries. I cannot practice my sport anymore. And I think, for me, when I got my burnout after the Olympic Games, it was because of the goals. Because it's always depends sometimes. For me, that was my case. If I go there, like talking about my burnout, After the Olympic Games, I was racing the next year. I finished the year 13 in the world. I did like 3-time fourth place in some World Cups. I had a great season. We finished third at World Championship as a team. I was never satisfied. That was my best ranking ever. It was my more sad year of all my career, because the only thing that I wanted was to win, and I never celebrated any little victory. Every time that I crossed the finish line, I never asked myself, did I give everything? Could I change something in my race? Today that was my 100%, and I give everything today when I cross the finish line. So if you answer your question and you say, yes, today I did everything, I did my best, I was awesome today with my awesome of today, because tomorrow you might be tired, but you give you 100%, and it's not the same 100% than the day before, but you have to respect that, because today you give everything that you could. And if you can answer yes to that, then you have to be proud of yourself. You have to just let your ego, because the ego kills you. And like a little bit like a fire, it consumes you. So I think I was just frustrated after the Olympic Games in Beijing that I finished 31st, and I let down all my country, my people. And I went completely outside myself of why I was doing that. I just wanted to show the world that I was the best triathlete in the world. And by doing that, or having this as a mindset, it just killed me. And after a while, I did a burnout, because even if I finished fourth at the finish line, I was going back home after that, I was sad, and fudge, when you look back at it right now, it's like fourth on a sprint finish in a World Cup. Well, it's amazing. And I did give everything. So there is the goals, like I say, I'm not a psychologist, but I think that's what I'm trying to do every day, to appreciate a little bit every day, like of what you do, and accept that today is what you had today to give it. You cannot give more than what you can give. And you have to put realistic goals in your mind. So that's why you need your team to just, hey, come down. You will not win all the World Cups. That's impossible. You never did it before. Why would you now? So to just put in your mind like realistic goal and be proud every day. That's why I ask my kids every night we go to bed. I ask them, what did you like today? What did you accomplish and you're proud? So they can try slowly to do what I didn't do at the time, to just appreciate and just be proud in little moment, So for me, that's one thing that could be, there's many other things, and I'm totally not a psychologist that saw them all, but that was my case. And the other case, when you have injury, I guess injury, it's like a math problem. 1 + 1 = 2. So injury plus I want to do triathlon equal, let's try something else. Like, let's figure it out. What can you do? So I did so many water running. I run so many hours in the pool, without pressure on my knees, on my ankles, to just get back into injuries. All those little elastics are just those little stretching, Pilates. Oh God, I did so many of those, because I was a F1. But a F1, as we know, it's really fragile. It doesn't ride on the Quebec road, because you're going to crash it you're going to get out of your highway, and you're going to crash your car, because there's so many potholes everywhere. So I kind of felt like I was able to go fast, but I was a lot of injured. So you just need to figure out a way how you can prevent them, fix them, put a team around you, do the little details that no one wanted to do, so that can bring you to just keep doing triathlon. So I was always in creativity with my coaches, and I appreciate them for that, especially Alex, that always had so many crazy ideas. I was just, where did that come from? But at the end, it worked. So
from what I understand, I got, positive self-talk in terms of burnout, but also, in terms of your process and your journey. And then the other thing I got too was being creative with realizing there's many things that you can do if you are injured, right? And still moving and finding different ways to do that. And finding also different ways to complement or do what your body needs to get healthier, right? So I love that, whether it's resting or training differently. when you talked about being proud, especially like for people that are just getting out of injury and they're getting back into moving, then they start to like it, right? They start to crave all these benefits that fitness give us, right? In terms of the feeling or in terms of the outdoors or the adventure, all these things. What are some mental fitness skills, practices, or strategies the great athletes possess that set them apart from the good athletes?
You need a lot of work. You just need to put the work. There's nothing, if you forgot the baking powder in your pancakes in the morning and just won't puff. So it's the same thing, I guess, in training. If you don't do the little work, then you won't puff, but you do need some point. Well, you have to be realistic. I had a friend, and Ben, his name was Ben too. He was such a cool guy. He's now in Alaska. He was the most hard worker guy ever. Like, seriously, Ben was there every single morning, every bike session. Seriously, the best training partner ever. But he didn't have the talent to go to the Olympics. But at the end, he was happy. Why? He was realistic. He said, I will not go to the Olympics. I will stay the best partner with you, Kathy, with the other one, because I love doing triathlon. But he put his goal realistic. So it made, so what makes difference with, I don't know, like team, there's so many different things that makes the difference. Being stubborn at the same time, because I saw that a lot in some athletes. They have a problem, they just stop, or they stop training because they're injured. We say to the kids right now, do many different kind of sport. So we can say les habiletés motrices, how can I say that? But to develop different mobility, then do something else. Do the same thing we say to those kids. You're injured, go. If you're a runner, go try swimming. You'll keep your heart pumping. You'll keep the fitness. You can do water running, or you can try biking. So you'll still work your quad, your glutes, like your body is full of muscle. And if you're injured in one sport, just try something else, or, balance your way out. And I don't know, what can I say? For me, what works, like I said, I was an emotional person. I needed my people. I needed my love people around me. I needed my team, my way. And I made it happen because it worked for me. And I was so stubborn. I remember some morning, and I still have those boots that I sleep in sometimes because my Achilles, because when I'm tight, my Achilles are just killing me. And I remember some morning, I could not even walk because I was too tight, and I had, my Achilles. But I slept for 1 year into those boots. I was actually happy that I was with my husband for a while, because this is not sexy in underwear. But it did help me go through the day. And some people were like, Kathy, you're never going to be able to run again, or to do your sport. And I was like, shut up. I don't even listen to you. Who are you to tell me where my limits are? You're the only one who's going to put your limits. And I actually teach that to my son. He's like, Mom, I cannot do that. And I'm looking around, and I'm just like, who told you that? Who told you cannot do it? And he's like, Mommy, it's crazy. Then do it. Just don't stop yourself. If only you can stop. If you say it's your limit, like I say, climbing a mountain, the view, it's nice on top, but the view can be nice in the middle too. So every person needs to, where is your limit? And this is why you have to respect yourself. And you will not be somebody else. You're yourself, and you have to talk to yourself all the time, because you have your key all the time. And for me, when I'm tired, I have those things that just pop under my nose, and I have rash on my skin. And nobody told me I'm tired. My body told me that. So if you listen to your body, you can find your way to performance, your way to being a great person as you are.
I love that. No, I appreciate there was a lot of wisdom there and a lot of great insights and practical tools, for people. So I'm sure a lot of my listeners enjoyed that. The two that really stood out to me was obviously consistency, and the other one, being super creative and finding different ways to cross train and fall in love with physical activity in general. One of the last questions I want to ask you, Kathy, is the purpose of this podcast is to inspire millions of people across the world to achieve greatness and enhance their overall personal well-being. So what is your definition of greatness?
Being in your top strength, like just it's just being yourself. You won't have another yourself. You won't be your neighbor. You won't be this other guy. You'll just be you, like till the end, till you die. And even today, I work with those psychologists. Now it's mostly related to work, but that's what I did also when I was an athlete. I was in my top strength, and if you work in your 5 top strength, that means you're going to be super productive and you'll be super happy. So my goal in life is to be happy. How can I do that? What is my strength? And when you know your strength, you just work with it. I talked about creativity. There's so many people, they don't like creativity because they're like, it's not me. Then it's fine. Somebody else is going to do the creativity for you. So surround yourself with a team that you'll have your strength. They have different kind of strength, and together you're just going to glow. But you need that team, because your non-strength, it's not default. It's just somebody else's strength. So find them, and just greatness, it's with a team. Team, it's TEAM. Together, everyone achieve more. Let's say it like this.
That's a beautiful definition. It goes with, lifting each other up and surrounding yourself with a community that does that. Now that you have a good feel of my podcast and what it is all about, who is a future guest that you would like to see on the show that you personally know?
Oh, you can invite either Jacques Forêt. He's a doctor at l'UQAM. He will talk about productivity at work. It's about happiness. So he's my mentor. I think that's a great someone you can have. Jean-Michel Pelletier, another doctor that I work with in motivation and happiness in sports. So he's more specialized into anxiety in sports. So he's awesome too. But I think if we talk to Madam and Mr. everybody, I think Jacques Forêt with, the happiness at work, because this is what we do right now when we're older. We don't, we just want to do work. We have family, we do sports. We want to find that balance. How we do that? Maybe Jacques will have some other answer for you.
I appreciate those recommendations, and I would love to have either of those guests on my show. Kathy, where's the best place for my listeners to connect with you or follow your work online?
Oh, they can chat on me on IG, Instagram, Facebook. They can go on the website. Everybody, actually, if you send an email, everybody's going to see it, but I will see it too. So I guess right now with social media, you can get in touch with me like in a click.
That's awesome, Jenny. Well, I want to take this last moment, to really thank you for your time. You've been very generous, sharing your wisdom, your insights, sharing some stories. And I also want to give a shout out to Jenny, who helped us connect and make this happen.
Yeah. Thanks, Jen. Thanks to you, Ben, too. It was a pleasure being on your show.
Thank you for listening to the Living Your Greatness podcast. If this show has added some value, don't be shy to subscribe, leave a rating, and make a review.